wasn't anything exciting anyway. Okay, I think we're all set now. So I got 7:40, and I call to order Woodstock's Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for January 20th, 2022. And I'll note for the record that we have some of us here in person, and we also have some commissioners virtually. So but we'll go through the roll call. So Mark, do you mind starting it out for us, and then I'll hit the people on the computer. Jeff Gordon. And then we'll just note on the record. So Nancy Frazier, can you just let us know you're here?
Present.
And Jeff Marcotte, can you let us know you're here?
Yes, I'm here.
And David Morse?
I'm here.
And Dwight Reinowitz?
Present.
Okay. So I think we do have a quorum. I'll note that for the record. Designation of alternates, I don't know if you need any. We have 1, 2, 3. We actually, it doesn't look like we need any alternates if I counted correctly. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No, we do not at this time. Okay. And then that takes us to, well, normally Jeff Marcotte's here to lead us off in the Pledge of Allegiance, but we can go ahead and do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, indivisible, with liberty, justice for all.
Mayor's reports will be quick. My usual thank yous to commissioners and to staff for the work that gets done. So thank you for that. And also just want to clarify about getting your meeting packets. The way you have it set up, Ashley, is that you have the meeting packets in that whatever box that is out front.
Yeah.
Unless a commissioner asks to have it mailed.
Correct. And the only person I have on my mailing list is Joseph Edaletta.
Does anybody else want to have it mailed versus going and picking it up?
So everyone.
Well, we have Dean Gould, Timothy Young, Mark Blackmer. Yeah. The rest of us here are fine. The rest of us here in person are fine picking them up, because I'm fine picking it up. How about online? Nancy, Jeff, Dwight, David, do you want your packets mailed, or you just want to come and pick them up in the box that's out front at Town Hall?
Jeff,
I'd have mine mailed, please.
Okay.
Jeff, if it would
I'm
be
fine
possible,
right now.
if it would be possible, then I got my packets mailed out as well. It's kind of difficult for me to get to the town hall sometimes.
So that's Dwight. Nancy, Jeff, do you want to pick your packets up?
I'm happy to pick mine up. And I also always access online. It's very easy. It's easier for me.
And Jeff?
I'm fine picking mine up, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, you got that list.
So there's only 3 of you who aren't picking them up. I can just mail them if it's probably easier that way.
Whatever's fine. I like picking mine up, so I'll continue to pick it up.
I'll just mail them.
Because sometimes the mail doesn't always get.
Yeah.
I think they send it to Hartford, then it comes back somehow, or.
Yeah, sometimes it takes longer.
Yeah.
So
But if you would like to pick it up, talk with Ashley. So, because we have that box out front there. So, okay. One item that's come up to add to the agenda is, Ashley, this was on the desk tonight, is that we had prior approved the Norrin subdivision. And they've sent us a request to ask for a 90-day extension for filing of the Mylars.
Yep.
So technically, we have to put this on the agenda, which we can put on as new business 7B, because we'll have to take a vote to approve the extension if we so choose. But, is there a motion to add this? Is that you, Joe? And is there a second? Okay, let me write this down. Let me get it. So that's add to the agenda as that 7B, the request for the Norrin subdivision or the applicants to request a 90-day extension for filing of the Mylars. Discussion? Hearing none, I'll go through the roll because we have some people virtual. Joe Adaletta, Mark Blackmer, Sid Blodgett, Nancy Frazier,
Aye.
Jeff Gordon, aye. Jeff Marcotte,
Aye.
David Morse,
Aye.
Bill Plulick, and Timothy Young. That so passes. You'll let them know the good news?
Yeah.
Okay. And I think if I'm correct, there's one more 90-day that they could request, and after that, the state statute says we can't grant any more.
Yep.
So, okay. So we'll get to that agenda item, but this way we'll deal with it here. So I'm gonna mark that down. So that takes us then to citizens' comments. That's for if anyone has any comments not pertaining to any particular agenda item that we're going to be getting to tonight. Okay.
One question, Jeff. The
Yes,
meeting,
David.
the meeting ID on the minutes is not correct.
What do you mean?
No,
On
on
the
the
agenda?
agenda, the ID on the agenda does not work. So we
That
had to
was
go,
the- Okay, because that was
I mean,
the
we-
link that I was told was the link to use.
well, I went to the, I think everybody went to the town hall link and got
Okay.
into, did that, but I just wondered if that's gonna affect people that saw that and couldn't access the meeting, the public.
That I don't know. That was the link that I had gotten verified from town hall to use. So I don't know which link is being used now.
I mean, the link worked, but the meeting ID number, if you go in by meeting ID and passcode, the meeting ID was not correct.
Okay, yeah, because normally you would click on it, so we're gonna
Yeah.
have to check on that, because that information was what I was given, or what we were told was
Yeah.
to you, so you mind, not right now, but at some point, checking to make certain whatever is the current
Yep.
one. Maybe it's changed and
Yeah.
we just weren't informed of it, but that can be checked on.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we were aware of that.
Okay, no, I was not, so thank you for letting us know. So then we can just, that it's all, because I'm told it's the same link
Yeah.
for us each meeting.
Yeah.
So. Okay. Okay. We'll check on that. That takes us to, I know the most exciting part of our meeting, which is the meeting minutes of prior meetings. We have our December 16th, 2021 meeting minutes. What is the pleasure of the commission? Is there a second? Tim, you seconded? Yeah. So motion by Joe Adaletta, seconded by Tim Young, to approve as presented the December 16th, 2021 meeting minutes. Do we have any discussion or anything relative to the meeting minutes? Okay, I will go through the roll. Joe Adaletta?
Aye.
Mark Blackmer? Sid Blodgett? Nancy Frazier?
Aye.
Jeff Gordon, aye. Jeff Marcotte?
Aye.
David Morse?
Aye.
Joe Plulick? Aye. And Timothy Young? That so passes. Congratulations, Amy, on another set of meeting minutes that gets passed. You're on a roll. I know you're excited about it. But thank you for doing our meeting minutes. That is. Well, you know, this was my understanding that these are meeting minutes from for a 2021 meeting. But now that the meeting minutes are gonna now fall into 2022, I'm sure that your expectation will be met. Just be careful what you wish for. You might get meeting minutes that are 100 pages long and 99 pages are full of pictures and graphics and cartoons, and you're gonna need to read through it all. So, we don't have any preliminary discussion, correct, Amy? I mean, Ashley?
Nope.
That takes us to our non-residential zoning permit. We have agenda item 6A. This is 440 Route 198, A Touch of Light LLC. This is an item that was tabled from our December meeting to this meeting. I know, Ashley, you had tried to reach out to them as far as what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
Have you heard back from them?
I have not. I know they are waiting for health department approval, so if we can just table it, they are in the works of it. And hopefully next month we can get that taken care of, but I will reach out again and see what the status is.
And my understanding is, correct me if I'm wrong, this is a non-residential zoning permit. There isn't a statutory deadline that we have to meet.
That's correct.
So,
Yep.
Joe?
The approval from NDDH is for?
I'm not, but I know I'll get a copy, so.
Okay. I mean, they don't need a septic system or something.
No, it's,
It's for the practice.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because it was checked about that there was something they needed,
Yeah,
and the answer came back saying, yes, there was something NDDH had to
yeah, they have to.
sign off on,
Yeah.
so I don't know.
Because other people are coming into the building and, but I don't believe it was a septic issue.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I make a motion to table this until our February 17th.
Is there a second? That was you, okay. So motion by Joe Adalata, seconded by Mark Blackmer to table agenda item 6A to our February 17th, 2022 meeting. Any discussion? Yes,
For the request of the.
okay. We'll put that in. Okay. Any other discussion? I'll go through the roll. Joe Adalata,
Aye.
Mark Blackmer,
Aye.
Sid Blodgett,
Aye.
Nancy Frazier,
Aye.
Jeff Gordon, aye. Jeff Marcotte,
Aye.
David Morse,
Aye.
Joe Palula,
Aye.
and Timothy Young. That so passes. You'll let them know. Hopefully by then they'll have whatever they need from public health.
Yes.
My understanding is everything else that is needed for the application is in. It's just this one item.
Yeah.
Okay. The next agenda item. Thought there was another piece of paper. The next agenda item is 6B. This is a non-residential zoning permit, 158 Route 171 First and Next Step Nutrition. And this, that was on our desk tonight, is part of this.
Correct. She
Okay.
couldn't come to the meeting. She had a conflicting schedule, so I asked her to just write up about her non-residential permit so you guys could review it. And if you had questions, I'd let her know.
What about the folks who are joining us virtual? Do they have copies of this, or is this on the website?
It's not. I just got it last minute.
Okay, yeah, because
I can email them a copy if they can.
so Nancy, Jeff, David, Dwight, there's some, there was a, from the applicant, there's something that that was written up by the applicant to us that we have copies of here. We can email it to you, so you, because I guess it's not on the website to see. So you can see this. I don't think there's a way for us to get this on the screen, is it? You able to, do you have it that you can share it on the screen?
I can take a picture of it and email it to them. Yeah, Yeah. we could
Because
do
we
that.
can try to show it so that way everybody can see it. There's no date on this, but this came in when, actually?
Just this afternoon.
So received today. All right. Okay. But as we're trying to get copies to you guys, all of us here have it, but we can still go through the application and then see about getting this out to you guys. I'll ask the question that I always ask on these applications. This is a complete application and fees have been paid?
Yes.
One question I have is, you do have the property owner's signature of approval?
Yeah, it's,
It's in the new file?
yep.
Okay. I just wanted to make certain. Usually
She
it
had to
is.
drop it off a day or two later and I didn't have, it wasn't gonna be in your packets.
Okay.
And I didn't think you guys needed a copy just to,
No,
See
many
their
times
signature.
what we do is if it's not on the copy we have, I'll ask.
yep,
So it's noted in the record that the property owner did sign
yep,
for approval
Correct.
relative to this application.
yes.
So they signed on this application or just the letter?
They signed on the main application, the applicant just dropped it off a day later.
Okay, thank you.
Yep,
So that we're covered for it. Show that there's the property owner's signature of approval. So we have that on the record. And then maybe you can clarify this potentially. Actually, I don't see anything on here is that there's any request where it talks about there's no new sign being requested as part of this application.
nope, not that I'm aware of.
So if later than a sign is to go up, that requires a separate permit.
Yes,
Okay. Otherwise, we bundle it in.
yeah,
So, okay, so we'll just note that for the record then that there is no new sign request on this. I'll open it up to other commissioners. Is the applicant here?
no, that's
Okay.
why she sent this in. She couldn't be
Okay,
here.
that's fine. It's helpful she sent something in there.
Yep.
But I'll open it up to commissioners if anyone has any questions or comments or Joe?
That was only going to be my only question about the property owner's signature. All the rest, I'm good with it.
Okay, and,
It hasn't shown up my email yet.
okay. Well, we can try to get it up on the screen. Otherwise, what I'll just do is, so that way you guys virtual can know what this letter is. It's from the applicant. It says, I'm a registered dietitian with the Commission on Dietetic Registration and am a state of Connecticut certified registered dietitian nutritionist. My business, First and Next Step Nutrition LLC, has a certificate of organization through the state of Connecticut and has a state of Connecticut EIN number. I will be providing nutrition education and counseling for general preventative wellness and chronic health conditions that would benefit from dietary interventions, lifestyle modifications. I am the sole practitioner and my services are available to patients who are referred by a physician and to individuals who self-refer. I am in the process of being contracted with insurance companies and expect to be participating with some insurance carriers and also accept self-pay from non-insured individuals. Services are available by appointment only with availability Monday-Saturday between the hours of 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. Patients may be seen in person or virtual telehealth. I am renting a room within the business space of Woodstock Massage and Wellness, owner Erica Hansen, which is located within Ferns Plaza, Woodstock Massage and Wellness, 158 Route 171. I'm an independent business from Woodstock Massage and Wellness. There's a waiting room and bathroom in Woodstock Massage and Wellness, which is accessible to patients. There is adequate parking for clients, customers of the businesses of Ferns Plaza in front of the building. That seems to be a pretty to the point description. Does anyone have anything? Any other questions or anything else on this? Otherwise, what is the wish of the commission?
Move to accept the application as presented.
Was that You, Tim? Okay. Let me just write this down.
Not that it matters, but it finally showed up in my email.
You can still send it to them. So that way you want to read it, it's very straight to the point then. So motion to approve the application as presented. Motion made by Joe Adaletta, seconded by Timothy Young. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, Joe Adaletta.
Aye.
Mark Blackmer.
Aye.
Sid Blodgett. Nancy Frazier.
Aye.
Jeff Gordon, aye. Jeff Marcotte.
Aye.
David Morse.
Aye.
Joe Plulik. And Timothy Young. That so passes. You'll let them know the good news.
I will.
This takes us then to agenda item 7A. This is 2568824M, Route 197, map 5124, block 19, lot 19, 19D, 19E, subdivision modification to merge subdivided lots together. Do you have that electronic that we're able to show it? We do. Okay, so we're going to use the digital version. So that way the folks who are here virtually can see it also. So I'll start out with staff. Ashley or Delia, who?
Part of my review, did you get
Okay.
it? in my packet?
I think so. Let's see here. Yes, that's January 5th?
Yes.
Okay. Anything that you want to speak to relative to this? Otherwise, you have your memo.
Point out the minutes from long ago are really annoying and hard to research. Pretty much useless.
I will note, one of the members present back then on April 11th, 1989 was no other than Mr. Stuart Morse. You were at that meeting. I know you remember it. We won't throw any questions about it your way. Okay, anything else, Delia?
No,
Okay. My understanding is it's a complete application with fees paid?
Yep.
Okay, so we have that on the record. Anything from your point of view, Ashley, then? Okay,
Looks good.
so I'll open up to the applicant or the applicant's representative. Thank you for coming tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you, commission members, for having me. My name's Daniel Blanchett. I'm a licensed J&D, I'm Thompson. I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant, my client Linda Whiteley. Linda owns 3 vacant lots that she had subdivided in 1989, and she wants to undo that. She wants to combine them all back into one property. Again, the lots are all located on the west side of Route 197, just past Black Pond along Turnpike Road. We are asking for one waiver. I believe we're required to submit a conservation checklist as a subdivision modification. But again, because no development of any kind is proposed, and that checklist is fairly time consuming to complete, we're asking that the commission would consider waiving that part of the application. There should not be any other approvals required from other agencies or commissions. And so we are hoping you'll vote to approve the project this evening. Otherwise, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. From a process point of view, the commission would have to take up the waiver request. And then if the waiver request passes, then the commission could then so approve the application.
I have a comment before you vote.
Right, we're not voting right now. I'm just talking about process. So, yep. So that would be the sequence we would have to do when we get to that point. So for that, so I'll open it up then to commissioners. Although Delia, you had a question or a comment?
Yes, the conservation checklist is difficult to complete because many of the links don't work anymore. And when it was created, people were directed to go to the Conservation Commission's website their website has changed, which only makes it more difficult to get the information to complete the checklist. I've been working on fixing it, but I've had some other stuff that is higher priority right now, so I haven't been able to finish it.
And it's actually on our to-do list. Last year, it came up for discussion at one of the meetings about that needs to be updated. So it's actually on the to-do list, to update that. So, Joe?
Well, given that this is an application to merge the existing lots into one lot, don't see any need to go through the conservation checklist. So I'm certainly comfortable with a motion to waive the conservation checklist request. But I'd like to keep that kind of on the future agendas about the status of where that checklist is. I think it's important that applicants have that available and that they can use the links to make it easier to complete the checklist or modify checklist. But I think it's important that we keep that work expeditiously towards getting it working well for applicants. But relative to this one, I'm comfortable with, if you want a motion to start the process, move that we accept the waiver as requested by the applicant.
Okay. Is there a second? One more. So motion by Joe Adelaide, seconded by Mark Blackmer to approve the waiver request for the subdivision regulations regarding the requirement for the development review checklist being completed and submitted. Discussion on that? One thing I'll just bring up is that when I was looking through this, and I think we've had some discussions prior, Delia and Ashley, about this, is when we do face these lot line adjustments and no new lot is created, but if you're taking 2 lots, 3 lots, whatever, and you're merging them down into one bigger lot, question can come up, do we even need a development review checklist for that? Because there's nothing on the development review checklist they would even check off if you're doing nothing but just getting rid of lot lines and creating one big lot. So that's something that we can always look at some future point, but it's just kind of food for thought. You know, right now we do require it for lot line adjustments, but you know, is it something that's really required if there's really technically, you're not re-subdividing and all you're doing is getting rid of lots. I'm not certain what, when I looked at the development review checklist, I wasn't certain what you would even need on that relative to, you know, an application like this, for example. But it's food for thought, something that one can put on our list of various things that we can always bring up. But I know we have some other things to do, but we do have a list of some of these, small might not be the right word, but some of these types of items that we come across as far as processes, something to consider. Any other discussion on the motion to grant the waiver request?
What's the total acreage of this new 3 lot?
Yes, sir, yeah, so the total acreage.
Well, before we get into it, is it germane to the motion to grant the waiver request?
Oh,
Just because that's what's on the table right now, so we'll get right back to that. Right now, the motion is to grant the waiver request, so I just want to attend to that. Okay, looking at our regulations, it is interesting that it's not a simple majority. I believe it's per state statute, which I've never understood why, that we actually have to have a certain number of yes votes. So we actually have to have 7 yes votes in order to grant a waiver request in subdivision regulations. And this is for a requirement for an application. So we just have to note that for the record. And then otherwise, I do need to note here that there's a few things we actually have to note when we consider waiving something like this, that we may only approve upon a finding that all the following conditions are met. So I'll just read them so we have them in the record because we're required to note them. Let me know if anybody has any objections to these. If we don't object to any of them, then we're perfectly fine. Conditions exist on the subject property which are not generally applicable to other land in the town. Said conditions were not created by the property owner, nor by his, her predecessors in title, including the first legal split of the property. The granting of the modification or waiver would be in harmony with the purpose and intent of these regulations in the Woodstock Plan of Conservation Development. And the granting of the modification or waiver would not have a significant adverse impact on adjacent properties' values for the public health, safety, and welfare will not be in conflict of the recommendation of the Plan of Conservation Development, as the same may be amended from time to time, and the modification or waiver would not allow an increased number of lots to be created than otherwise allowed by these regulations in the Woodstock zoning regulations. I didn't hear any objections for that, so that does take care of it. If there's nothing further, I'll go through the roll then. Joe Adaletta, Mark Blackmer, Sid Blodgett, Nancy Frazier,
Aye.
Jeff Gordon, aye. Jeff Markov,
Aye.
David Moore,
Aye.
Joe Palulek,
Aye.
and Timothy Young. So the waiver request is granted. That then takes us back to, if there's anything further relative to the application. Joe, look, you had a question about the acreage that you wanted to ask?
Acreage, I think I see here 595.
Correct, yeah, each about 2 acre lots, and so they'll be just under 6 once they're combined.
Okay, and then the other question is this well, what's this thing used for?
If you could just state your name for the record, please, so, thank you.
Yeah, that information was copied off the subdivision map from 1989. And so, yeah, I suspect that it's gone now.
Oh, is it well for irrigation or something? Or what?
Oh, no, it's for the house that was directly in front of that.
Okay.
197. I forgot the house number, it might be 15 or 16, something like that.
Okay, and they have their own well
They have their own.
Did that answer your questions? Okay. Anything further from commissioners? Joe, yes.
Or 19/U/D.
Probably go back to lot 19, but that's not really something this commission gets involved in.
I like to call it 19.
And then the remaining lot 19B and 19C and 19A will still exist
Yes, sir.
as shown.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else from commissioners? Or any commissioner on virtual? Did you have any questions? I don't see anybody hand is up. Okay. What is the pleasure of the commission relative to approving this?
I make the motion that they combine these into one lot.
To approve the application as presented? Okay. Is there a second? Okay. So motion by Joe Palulek, seconded by Sid Blodgett to approve the application as presented. We've already dealt with the waiver request. That's been taken care of. I'll go through the roll if there's no further discussion on the motion. Okay. Joe Adaletta. Mark Blackmer. Sid Blodgett. Nancy Frazier.
Aye.
Jeff Gordon, aye. Jeff Markov.
Aye.
David Morse.
Aye.
Joe Bullock.
Aye.
And Timothy Young. That so passes. Congratulations. Thank you for coming tonight.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just have a comment, I want to comment about Daniel's presentations. We've heard them in the past. They've been very complete, very thorough, and we appreciate the time you put into it to make it clear.
Okay. Seven, okay. And then the next one is the request. This is now 7B. This is the request to for us to grant a 90-day extension for the filing of the MyLaws on the Norin subdivision that was already approved. Does, anybody have any questions on this?
You know, I heard it was.
I'm not sure. They didn't say, they just emailed me and asked for a request for an extension.
All they need is to make the Mylar the way it was approved and make any corrections that might have been discovered, and then they have to file, but sometimes it has to do with the paying the company, or maybe they have their own reasons for needing more time.
Because right now it looks like the deadline is February 11th, so we would be granting 90 days beyond February 11th. Is that what we'd be doing?
And
Sorry.
90 days from the date of their, whatever was their expiration. date,
February
90 days
11th.
after that.
So whatever date that is, you'll note it.
Yeah,
In the
I put it
file.
the letter and I,
Yeah, it'll be noted in the file, whatever that 90-day period is. So, okay. Any further discussion or questions on this? Any of you online have any questions? Okay, is there,
I'll make the motion, Chairman.
was that
Make
was
the
you,
motion
Jeff?
that's me, yes. Motion to grant the 90-day extension.
Okay, is there a second? So Mark. Okay. So motion by Jeff Marcotte, second Mark Blackmer to approve the requested 90-day extension. I'll go, is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll go through the roll. Joe Adaletta. Mark Blackmer. Sid Blodgett. Nancy Frazier.
Aye.
Jeff Gordon, aye. Jeff Marcotte.
Aye.
David Morse.
Aye.
Joe Palulik.
Aye.
And Timothy Dunn. That so passes. You'll let them know the good news.
I will.
Thank you. All right, so this takes us then to, well, we're going to get into we have some items that are at the end of the meeting, but we have the, to take back up about the town's affordable housing plan. Switch files here. So where we have left off with this was that the commission had unanimously tendered a resignation to, a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen to go with the NECOG contract. The Board of Selectmen received information about both presentations and had some discussion at their meeting, their last meeting, not the one tonight. I was not able to attend that one. That one happens at 4 p.m. So I wasn't able to attend it because I was at work. But they had one tonight at 7 that I attended. And they had a discussion, and the selectmen voted unanimously to approve and go with the contract with the NECOG. So now that that has been tended to, that actually then means that we would continue with our discussion. Yeah. So about moving forward with. Grab one. Excellent. Oh, you want one? Okay. We have to get this to the folks who are virtual. We didn't email it out ahead of time because we didn't know which way the selectmen were gonna go. So we need to wait for the selectmen to vote. This is the stuff that was, yes, but this is the, but we had to wait for the selectmen to decide what they were gonna do before we could start getting some documents. I don't think it came out ahead of time to us, Delia. I don't remember, unless this was stuff we saw in December. I don't recollect.
I originally sent it in September, but I don't know,
Oh.
maybe in December.
Or was it sent to commissioners in December?
I thought so,
I don't recollect. I don't think so. I think we were waiting to find out, we needed to wait to find out which way the board of selectmen was gonna vote. Because the selectmen, for some reason, if they voted not to go with the NECOG, then these documents coming out from NECOG, we wouldn't then be taking up. So they voted tonight. So we wanted to make certain then to follow whatever process we had to follow relative to presenting out documents. That's why there's copies tonight. We can always get copies emailed out to all
Yeah.
commissioners as well.
Yep, I'm gonna do it right now.
Yep, and that way also the folks who are zooming in will be able to get a copy, but we'll have it up on the screen anyway. And that way then we can be looking at it. If you have something, Phil?
Did they vote on the budget also?
The budget hasn't been voted yet because that has to go, selectmen need to do whatever they do. Board of Ed does whatever it does, then they have joint meetings to try to hash out what's going to be the proposed municipal budget before there's a discussion at town meeting, then a referendum. That has not yet. So our budget,
The 10 grand, whatever, they approved that then?
that was approved years ago in a sense. We, many years ago, there was money that that was requested of the Board of Finance every year to go to the plan of conservation and development. Many years ago, a former treasurer said, why are you doing that? Just request a certain amount of money. At the time, it was 25,000. It was a town meeting. It was approved. It sits in an account. I always call it the POCD account, but I don't think that's its official name. We currently have around 18,000 in it. So we do have money that in that account that we could use for this purpose. That's there.
So that would come out of the 18 grand.
Yes, it would. Yep, and there's been prior discussions with the Board of Finance. I had attended one of their meetings a few years ago to discuss what would be the process when we start getting this fund down low. And still have ongoing POCD work because every number of years the state requires the POCDs to be updated. And the process is that we would come back at that time to the Board of Finance, request a certain amount of money to bring the fund back up. And then if that has to go to town meeting, that goes to town meeting. So yes, we do have the funds in that account. The Board of Finance knows about that and the Board of Selectmen knows about that. But as far as the rest of our budget, that's yet to be determined. Joe, you had a question?
Yeah, it's just curious, was,
Prepared all of these documents in December.
But again, we couldn't get them out because we didn't know who we were contracting with. So, but yes, these, yes, yep. From that deal you have to work into. So. So probably the best thing right now would be to kickstart some discussion. Just to let you know, from a process point of view, we would need to, you have a PowerPoint, Delia, so if there's anything on the PowerPoint you otherwise want to get out to the commission, just email it out to us.
Okay.
So otherwise, from a process point of view, we do have that deadline of June 1st, 2022. Who knows what the legislature will do, if they'll change that or not. But for right now, and then we'll need to, in addition to what Delia will go through as far as some of the things that she's going to talk about relative to things to put into a plan, we would also need to be spelling out and agree upon, if we can, a timeline as far as what different things do we want to do at different times, just because we have only so much time. Well, I had raised the topic to the commission that we certainly would want to be attending to this, especially during our planning meetings. We do have some other planning work as well that we do. However, separate from that, if we do need to meet at any extra meetings in order to get this done with regards to any type of encouraging the public to attend and to submit and other different things we have to go through, reviewing information and that type of stuff. We may have to have some extra meetings. That's part of what we will need, if we could tonight, to kind of spell out, and Delia will work with us on that, is looking at the calendar, when are certain things we could get done, so we can try to get everything together. And with enough time for us to review drafts, get enough input from everybody, including any municipal agency that wants to weigh in, boards and commissions. And we'll certainly be making certain we reach out to them, as we've done prior times, and also, let the public know as well. And that way we can get through, our work with enough time to get this into the state. Whatever the state does with it, the state does with it, but otherwise they just want it by June 1st, whatever day of the week that is. So I'll just ask that when we go through with Delia, and she has a draft schedule, we just need to go through and kind of say if we agree or disagree, so that way not only does it help us in planning what to do, but Delia and Ashley as well, as far as, the work that's going to be ongoing. Also, this will give others enough advance notice as far as, what we're doing, to give them enough time to weigh in or ask questions, provide information, that type of stuff.
Not pushing here, but which is having researching demographics, not that I've done. This is by the end of February. Is that February 17th for our regular meeting?
Well, everything's from the schedule has to be adjusted now because we have so little time to do it. So I'll do my best to do everything as quickly as I can.
Although we should be,
Well, that's what we'll go through.
Meeting on the 24th, just the first meeting in March, we got the legal training. So
We do have the legal training, however, again, if we need to have, we're probably going to have some extra meetings. Because remember, the business meetings we run, like this meeting, we're going to have applications that we do need to attend to. So if we do need to have some extra meetings, and if we have an extra meeting, that would just be focused only on this as the agenda item. If we have to do that. So that's part of what we'll go through to see, what's up. And also, if we,
I was looking in case we, nothing wrong with having one on the fourth Thursday.
correct.
But instead of saying, well, we'll just wait until our first Thursday of the month. That's already booked, so.
Oh, I know. So what will happen is that's part of what would like to see that we can kind of flesh out is once we hear what Delia is presenting and the draft schedule, what do we feel we might need to do? Do we want to already go ahead and start to schedule some extra meetings? So it's on our calendars. We can always cancel a meeting if we don't need it, knowing that there's certain things we have to do at the business meeting. Otherwise that leaves only the other planning meeting. Right now, we do have that annual legal training session the first Thursday of March. If we feel we need to move it for some reason, we could. Otherwise, we can hold it, but have an extra meeting, but we'll go through that and going through the calendar, and Delia can guide us as well, what to do with our meetings as far as extra meetings. I think we're just gonna have to schedule some extra meetings, knowing we're gonna need to do the work. So, Delia, did you want to go ahead through?
I'd like to do the presentation.
Yeah, you go
Just
ahead.
Make
Yep.
sure the people online can hear me. Ashley, if you want to mute, and I'll turn my microphone on. Sure.
So we're here to talk about the Woodstock Affordable Housing Plan. Do you want to mute your microphone, your speaker?
You're on Zoom and they have no background.
So I'd like to do a quick overview on what is affordable housing, what is the plan, and how the plan will be created. So you might think, what is affordable housing? There's affordable housing, and I say it in quotes and capital letters because the state statutes actually define that term. And then there's what you might think of as affordable housing, but it's not what the statutory definition. So to differentiate that, I'm calling it informal or attainable housing. And some other plans, they're calling it naturally occurring affordable housing. The formal affordable housing is defined by the Connecticut state statutes, costs less than 30% of the income of a household earning 80% or less of the area median income. This level is adjusted for household size. These units include government-assisted tenant rental assistance, single-family CHFA, and USDA mortgages and deed-restricted units. These are the only units that count towards the town's qualifying affordable housing that is used to measure the percentage in each town. And that is important because there's a threshold of 10%. As you see on this chart, there's a lag for some reason. I show all the towns in the NECOG region and what their 20% affordable percentages are according to the state. So Woodstock is 1.56%. We're towards the bottom of the list. The funny thing about this, the way the state calculates it, they base it on the total housing units as of the last census. We did a census in 2020, but the data is not available yet. So the number, it's a little blurry on the screen here, but those online should be able to see it. It's your 2010 total census housing units was 3,582. And I have it in red here showing the flaw is that the state doesn't update that. They don't reach out to all the towns to get an annual update in the number of houses. They just go back to that last available census. The funny thing is all the other columns that you see on the table that are highlighted in blue are updated every year. So your percentage on the far right side of the table, it's kind of a not completely accurate, but this is what the state goes by. So as soon as our 2020 census is available and they start using the most current census, which by then will probably be 2 or 3 years old, then your percentage will be a little bit more accurate, even though in the meantime, new houses would have been built. Sure. You go by what the census uses, and I believe it would be Windham County. It's not going to be just Woodstock or NECOG. NECOG doesn't actually exist in the census right now. We've been pushing them to recognize it because in Connecticut, they recognize counties, but counties aren't really recognized for most other purposes. So we're trying to get them to recognize the Council of Governments, and I think there's been some progress towards that, but I don't know that it's actually happened yet. So then you have the other question of what is affordable housing, the kind that's not capital A, that's not defined by the state statutes. So what I'm calling informal or attainable housing, it's not deed restricted, it's not regulated in any way or in any way guaranteed to remain at a certain price or rent, but occurs at a low enough cost as to be affordable to many people without public sector assistance. It's owned and or managed by the private sector, and the cost of the rent is subject to fluctuation based on the market. That's part of the problem, that right now you have a lot of people who are kind of fleeing big cities to come out to the country. And so there could be a shortage of housing units. And some of those people coming from the bigger cities may have been wealthier, and where they lived before probably cost a lot more than where they lived here. So they can afford to buy something bigger than what they probably lived in if they lived in the city. It's a general statement, but in many cases it would be true. And so then that causes the value of the houses around here to go up because people are buying houses sight unseen, and they're often paying higher than what someone locally would have paid because they were coming maybe with a New York City budget or New York City mindset. And maybe they were also in a hurry to buy something. So as I noted at the bottom, there's no widely accepted definition. So this is mine. So an affordable housing plan is a requirement of the state general statutes 8-30J. It was first approved as a requirement in effective July 2017, and the compliance is required by June of 2022. At least once every 5 years, every municipality must prepare or amend and adopt an affordable housing plan. And it shows you what the goal is: to undertake a proactive planning process and lay out a strategy for meeting the housing needs of existing and future residents and workers. The plan must specify how the municipality intends to increase the number of affordable housing units in the municipality. The statute is actually referring to that percentage. And just to give everybody a little whiplash, we'll take you back to this chart eventually when it catches up. If you can see I don't know if you can see my pointer here where it says 0 for deed restricted. That's really the only units that the town can do anything about. The town has no control over how many government assisted units or tenant rental assistance or mortgages. There's nothing you can do to increase those. I actually contacted someone at the state that puts out this list to find out what the towns could do. And he said there's nothing you can do. So the only one you can do anything about is the deed restricted units, which is, I think it's good to have the plan, but I think it's a little bit misleading, because if say your subdivision requires however many affordable housing units, say it's even 10%. There's been awfully small subdivisions lately. You're not going to get much of a house when you have a 2-lot subdivision. But what we could do is increase the attainable housing by increasing your variety that's allowed. And the more variety you have, the wider range of price you'll have that goes along with that.
This type of deal was also being other was with the legislature's plan at the time was we wanted to meet certain goals, we had things in your housing plan. Also referencing at the time in the draft bill other legislation that is mandating that all towns have to reach a certain number. And in certain ways, which really wasn't attainable at all or workable for rural towns. It was more geared for cities and suburbs. And so a number of those draft bills didn't get through, but yet they didn't change certain aspects of this law that got changed. So in a sense, some of what they're asking to be done is somewhat of a gray area or not fully defined. One thing we should keep in mind is when Delia is talking about things like that, there is I forget the name of that, the legislature created a committee, task force, that has a number of subcommittees, that is meeting to come up with a whole host of recommendations, including design guideline recommendations and zoning recommendations, to bring forward to the legislature to see if the legislature would approve some of these recommendations, but then would then staff and have some bearing on affordable housing. So in a sense, some of what we're going through right now is a little bit unclear what new stuff the legislature will come up with. So I just wanted to mention that just because there's a number of proposals being geared up this legislative session, the Planning and Development Committee, that do follow up on what the A is going through as far as what more the state wants us to do. Or not. I just wanted to mention that just so that the commission is reminded of some of how this all came about.
And so the process, it's not required that you obtain public input, but as a planner, I strongly believe that you should not create a plan that you don't involve people. It's going to affect what they can do with their property. So you really should make an effort to reach out to them. You can do that with a survey, and you could have a public information meeting. And it's funny that the state put out a guide about how to do the plan. The plan says you don't have to do the outreach, but it spends probably 75% of the pages talking about how to do the outreach, which is kind of funny. But then I would do a needs assessment research, and then I put it in a document that goes in the appendix of the actual plan. And the outcome of the survey and the needs assessment research, that's how I would draft the goals and strategies. And when you have your meetings, we'll have meetings and discussion, and we can tailor those goals and strategies according to the commission and the input of the public. I'll draft the plan, and then I recommend that you hold a public hearing. It's not required by the statute, but as a planner, I strongly believe we should. The only thing is, if you're gonna have the public hearing, you have to provide 35-day notice to the town clerk. So you have to factor that into the timeline. And so the options for public outreach, you can do a story map. I'm in the process of doing that for Canterbury and writing their plan of their affordable housing plan, a story map. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with maps. I don't know why they call it that, but it's created through Esri, which is a company that makes GIS, or maybe is most well known for the GIS software. And so it's kind of more like an interactive website. It has articles, and you can put pictures or images or maps or whatever. You can do surveys. It would discuss the same types of things that go into the affordable housing plan, but people can access it more like a website. If you don't want to do that, that's fine, but that's something that I would need to know so I can factor it into my timeline of getting the work done. The survey, you have a draft that I've provided to you. I would need to know pretty quickly whether you want to go with the survey or if you want to make changes. If you want to have that public information meeting, I would do a presentation and a SWOT analysis with everyone who's in attendance. I just did this meeting with Canterbury, and they told me they were going to do the meeting all online. So I was at my office, and then they had probably half the commission show up in person, and it didn't work out that well. So if you're going to do a hybrid like this, I'm going to come here, but I think it would work fine as long as I'm here. It was a little difficult for the people in the room who had their own side conversations, and it didn't work out as well as I'd hoped. What I did do during the meeting was I had a survey, just a couple of questions of the people who were there, and that's how we would do the SWOT analysis instead of having a big sheet of paper, which we could do. The idea was that since it was supposed to be online, I had Poll Everywhere. It's a website that has an interactive survey, and you click on the questions that you want to answer, or you type in your answers, and they immediately show up on the screen. It didn't work out as well as I'd hoped, because some of the people who showed up, they didn't have a laptop with them to put their answers in. And because it was supposed to be online, I didn't have it set up to use cell phones. I would have it set up here to do it both ways. So if you come in person, you take your cell phone and you answer the questions, and it could be set up so that, for instance, someone who doesn't bring a cell phone, they can just put their answers in on someone else's cell phone, and then the results show right up on the screen. So that way you get all of the input from the questions about the strengths, weaknesses, that kind of thing, and also get some background on who's in attendance. And then, so you have your options on the left side of your screen, and you have your mandatory that we have to have the plan done. So you have, it's sort of, you have flexibility, but you don't have very much time to be very flexible. So, but I need to know what you want to do. So for this evening, you can discuss I thought you would have gotten the documents before tonight. So that's why it says review and finalize. If you didn't have time to read it, maybe we can set up another meeting very soon, and then you can figure out if you like the survey the way it's drafted, or what changes you want to make and to the outline in the schedule, and then make those decisions about scheduling a meeting, additional hearing and that kind of thing. And the survey will be done on SurveyMonkey, and NECOG has the license, and that's all part of what you're paying. You don't have to pay an additional fee or anything. The survey that I'm doing in Canterbury right now has, I think, 312 respondents, so it's turned out really well.
online as far as what the others said. I think, and the big thing would be what we want to fill out our timeline.
Excuse me, Delia, we can't hear any comments other than yours if we're online.
NECOG is doing a housing plan for a number of different towns. And so we met together and we came up with kind of a beginner survey, and then I made some changes to it. And so this is essentially the survey that I was using for Canterbury. It's not exactly the survey that we at NECOG came up with as a group. I made some changes to it. Yes. Yes. So what I did with Canterbury, and I'd recommend you do many of the same things. You put the link on the website, you share it with any, if you have a newsletter or anything like that. They don't have a newsletter, but they have an email blast. So they sent it out to everyone who gets that email blast, who must have signed up for it. They send it to the school, and the school shared it with all the parents. And I made these, I took a sheet of paper and divided it in 4. I made like little postcard size things that have the website and have the QR code, which if you're familiar with that, looks like a square with dots on it, and you use your cell phone to read it, and then it takes you right to the website. So you don't have to type in that long address. And so those are brought to they have a Dunkin' Donuts and a gas station and a couple of other places. There's also paper surveys at the town hall, which is in their town hall and libraries in the same place, but there's some at the library and I think in the vestibule of the town hall. There's also some paper surveys provided at their supermarket, and they have a little box to put them in when you're done. And so we could do something like that. If there's a couple of places around town that you want to do paper surveys. Originally, they didn't believe people would do them online, and they wanted to mail them to every household. And he said you could do that, it's their choice, but it means it would take an awful lot longer for me to input all the data. And then when they saw how much it would cost for postage, they changed their mind. And so far, I've only had 11 surveys come back in paper. So it's working. People are doing the survey online. And we could also put something on Winnie Radio, and they don't have a newspaper, but we have the Villager. You can put something in the Villager and in the Shopper's Guide. I could make a poster with those little postcard things and put them at Sweets and various other places around town, and a couple of places we can put paper surveys. I don't see why not. I mean, maybe they want to be a resident, maybe they want to live here. I guess I could add other options, like if you're a property owner but not a resident or something like that. Or maybe it's already a little bit kind of long. Right now it fits on 3 pages, but maybe I could add as an option. You can say, are you Woodstock resident and are you a property owner? And I don't know if I can squeeze in, are you thinking of moving to town or something like that? I find it kind of hard to believe that a lot of people are gonna take the survey, especially if they don't live in town. I mean, you don't get a cookie for it or anything, so we'll be lucky if the people we do get to do the survey.
I think it's a good thing for the race to.
What did you want to change?
Well, it talks about July of 2017 legislation.
Oh, it was new legislation at the time.
It was at the time, but actually we don't have PHA 921. No. Have additional legislation that we're working on. So,
If you want to send me the changes that you'd like to make. And
yeah,
Chris-
I would just mention that there's also the PA 921 that passed in 2021. So people now know that there's legislation. that we're working on.
what's the number 20 what? Okay, and in response to Sid's question, I was thinking of changing question 1 to RUA, and then you can choose property owner that lives here, property owner that doesn't live here, seasonal resident, and resident that's not a property owner. Does that include everybody?
Gotta be on your someplace where the current is, right?
Yes.
Did I had it on the Canterbury one. Did I forget to put it on here?
Doing it online, that's easy, but yes, there's a paper copy, you're right, we would make certain.
So what deadline do you want? I'm doing the Canterbury one for roughly a month.
What do you have on your, on your, you have what, you wanted to be able to get this in?
Yes.
So I guess looking at the calendar, when do you feel you could get the survey active?
I could do it for the month of February because it takes a little time for me to figure out all the places I need to distribute it to and then make sure that, yeah, I did that for the POCD. I went around and dropped off paper surveys. I didn't get that many in return, but we can still do libraries. Well, if you did it's the 20th now. I think I could have it ready for February, but if I don't, I'll just say it'll be a month. And as I get closer to it, I'll know whether I'll be ready to go in February 1st.
So looking at our calendar, right now for March 3rd, after our
I would need to have time to input all the paper surveys that we get and then to go through the results. But you could still have another meeting. I did the Canterbury information meeting last week. And so their survey is still ongoing, but part of what I did during the presentation was to ask people to do the survey and to ask people that they know to do the survey. So I did a SWOT analysis. I had a few survey questions for the people who attended the meeting. But it was good to have that public information meeting during the time the survey is open, because I asked them to do the survey. The first thing you're scheduling is a public meeting where you're inviting the public to either attend in person or online. And then they ask questions and they learn about what a housing plan is. That's a little bit late if you're doing it on March 24th. Why don't we do that meeting in February?
I'm remote and I cannot hear anything but you.
What?
Oh,
Do we have February 3rd? We have February 10th? 17th is our business.
I don't have the 10th. I'm in Canterbury at their meeting.
Okay. Would not be any. That's just 2 weeks away. That's right around the corner.
My presentation, I could have it ready for then.
No.
No. No, I was gonna start the survey as early as I can in February. What's the 24th? I would have it a month after I'm gonna start it.
Roughly when do we think we'd want to send it? You're having time to do the data assessment. And that's-
Well, I thought the goal was for me to do my best to try to get the survey out to the public by the 1st, which I'll have to scramble, but I could do that. And then because I can provide paper copies, and then if I can get some help from the town hall, they can distribute them to the libraries. And if you want to maybe see if you can drop some off at Sweet Evelina's, and I don't know if there's any other places you think where people go a lot, but I could also provide those little pieces of paper with the QR code, which I think a lot of people are using, because so many people use their phone for everything these days. And it just brings you right to the survey and you can do it right on your phone.
So if we want to get this out relatively quick, we're still gonna have to be letting people know about it.
Right.
Which we got to give them time anyway to know. When then in February, we got a list.
What I was
Want to put something in the paper? We do.
I don't know, 3 weeks to a month.
Over some of the information, so it's, you wanna do that after the survey, or you want that during the survey?
No, I wanted the information meeting to be held preferably in the first half of February when the survey is going on. And then hopefully you'll get more people to do the survey by asking them during that meeting. Not to do it during the meeting, but ask them during the meeting and then they do it after the meeting.
For the deadline for the survey, separate from those meetings, the deadline for the survey, what would then be a reasonable deadline to tell people, have your survey submitted by this date? You looking for the entirety of February to have that done, or? If we do March first, for example, we have to give you time to assemble. You know, fine. We'll still be continuing to do whatever. Going to others. Does that give you, does that give enough time to think for Delia, or as how much time to give? survey?
Well, while the survey is going on, I'm gonna be doing other stuff, like writing your needs assessment. And if you wanted to put that on your agenda, you could have a meeting to talk about that. It'd still be a public meeting, but I don't know if you wanted to do that as like the public information meeting probably should only be about that.
What do we want to do as far as telling people? What do we think would give enough? Use the survey. What we did was we also had what the is. With the information. The next thing we do is, want to get something in for next week, then stuff will be submitted.
So for promotion, I have a list here, the Villager, the Turnpike Buyer, Winnie Radio, Facebook, the town website, the school. If you have a PTO or if the school shares with their parents, a flyer with a QR code that I place at popular places around town, a paper survey at the libraries, the town hall, Suite of Leanings, and distributed directly to the seniors at senior housing, and email to all town employees and boarding commission members. Well, I meant whichever one is for this town. I didn't remember which one's which. Okay.
We actually sent out.
And they have, I think, over 100 people on the public notice registry. So every time there's an amendment to the regulations or to the plan of conservation and development, I notify all of them and I'll send them a notice of the meeting and of the survey. And what's not on here, but there should be, there'll be a little QR code and it says you can also do this online. And so if someone picks up a paper one and like, I don't want to do paper, but they see the QR code, they could just do it on their phone.
You can also put a line saying when you eat that, go see Tim Young, or they make you move to town. That's a different story. So right now, so you're dealing with March first as a survey deadline? Okay. And, I can put together something to get to the paper enough to that agency. Does anyone have anything else on the survey? Or you okay right now with moving forward with it? Nancy, go ahead. Nancy, do you have something?
Your speaker.
Oh, hold on. Okay, go ahead.
Me?
Yep.
Okay, I just had a quick idea, thinking about how to get the survey out. Is it possible in the paper, could you do one of the scan barcodes so that people could just, if they're reading the paper, Woodstock residents could then scan it and get the survey to come right on their phone?
Yes, that would be the QR code. Yes. That could be easily done.
Yeah, and if that was said and I missed it, I apologize.
No, the QR code certainly can be used and it's very simple. All the phones are set up now that recognizes a QR code and takes you right to the link.
In the newspaper announcement. Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. Yep, it could be put into an announcement, with stuff. So, yep, and it'll be right there. So, yep. And actually that can also be put into, well, you don't really need it online, the link, but anything printed, the phone 1, 2, 3 takes you, which is nice. So, okay. Anything else relative to the survey, man? Then getting to what we were also discussing, I know you were raising this a couple of times, Mark, is you're certainly going to need to have these informational meetings. All of our meetings are public. This is really to encourage the public. And our meetings are going to continue right now to be hybrid for the time being. You can attend virtual, you can attend in person. But the as far as when we want to start holding those meetings, there was some discussion about if February 3rd meeting is not enough notice to let them know. We do have a planning meeting scheduled that night, so we won't have lack of things to do anyway. But as far as what we want to let the public know about, what do we think? We have, again, the 17th of February is our business meeting. I would assume, Delia and Ashley, if we're going to be having these public information meetings, we really would like to make certain we're focusing just on that at a meeting. Do we want to look at, well, you can't do February 10th, you said, right?
Right.
Okay.
I'm available another day of the week.
I'd have to check with the town clerk to see what is assigned.
Just an option for me to be able to do it Thursday, but you could pick Wednesday. If you think we're available.
Well, let me ask you a question. For the public informational meeting, are you basically like doing this PowerPoint presentation?
It's a different one,
But
more
something
involved.
similar?
Yeah.
So what if we held it on the 3rd and then put it for the 17th agenda too, and then see what we have on the agenda? I don't foresee too many applications coming in. It's been quiet on that end. I know.
Well, if we get any special permits, all we do is schedule public hearing, we don't do anything else that night. So that's
So
like
what if
when
we
we're-
offered it at both meetings and
We
then
could.
we have it twice and then we don't have to worry about trying to find another night? And, you know, like if you're on the email blast, you know, we can put it extra on Facebook and whatever other social media we have. just to get the word out there.
So this is an informational meeting about what we're doing.
Right.
Right.
And then while we're doing this, we're having the survey being done.
Mhm.
Then you'll get some information together, and then we have, this is just,
Well,
we have another public.
At the informational meeting, the first meeting that we're not tonight, but the next one, I go over what affordable housing is in the plan, but then I also do a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. And also ask some questions of the people who are attending the meeting in terms of, for instance, what kinds of housing have you lived in throughout your lives, including what you live in now, but what did you live in, all the other types you've lived in, maybe an apartment or a house or college dormitory or military barracks or whatever. And it gets you thinking about housing types. What kind of housing types do people need? Well, people who live here probably have similar needs as to the types of housing that we've all lived in. I've lived in a home, like a single family home, an apartment, college dorm. I lived in a city apartment. I was homeless for a while. You know, there's lots of different types of housing that people have lived in, and that helps you figure out what needs to address.
So as far as looking on our calendar, do we want to use our February 3rd planning meeting? Now, remember, we do have some other planning work we're doing as well, other than affordable housing. So we do need to keep that in mind. However, which will be one of the other topics tonight on the agenda. No, I know, that's correct. And that's why I wanted to tackle affordable housing first before we get into anything, if we have time tonight, about ag, because affordable housing has to be our number one priority because of the state issue. Do we want to then list that planning meeting for February 3rd to kickstart the informational meetings, and also use part of the February 17th meeting, which would be after we deal with whatever business we do, which we could get through hopefully pretty quickly.
And nobody may show up, for the informational part. So you just say, you never know.
I mean, sometimes we had many POCD meetings where nobody came.
Yeah.
And then we had some where people did.
Right.
So
So you never know.
It's a good idea to have both meetings
Okay.
available to make the presentation. And particularly if we can announce it publicly that there will be the two meetings. So you can't take the 30.
Okay, so then we're on that then. So I can coordinate with Delia and Ashley about how we'll see about the various notifications and stuff.
Mhm.
So we can deal with that. So we'll note that then for that. In that meeting. One thing about meetings, do we still want to keep scheduled for March 3rd, the annual legal training session, or do we feel we would want to move that in order to open a meeting to be tackling these things?
Leave that one to Delia. Does Delia think she's gonna have information that she needs to bring to us?
Well, there's going to be various things we're going to need to be going through.
While the survey is going on, I'm not doing anything with the survey, so I'll be doing your needs assessment. And I plan on having that done, and so you could talk about that at a meeting.
Is that, how much time would that, I just mean, could we still do the training and then yes, we still had time for the other?
Well, the training is usually what we've been doing, no more than a few hours on the training. However, I can talk with, one option is we don't do the training that night. We do it a different. Or, Rich does spend time every year going through the primer. What's our authority and FOI and conflict, that type of stuff. So I have those of us who've been on a vision for a week, we hear that every year. It's not bad to be reminded of it all. The issue would be, would we have enough time to do a legal training session and also deal with affordable housing, or just do affordable housing?
I don't think a needs assessment would take a long time to discuss it. It'll be a report. You can go over the data. But maybe some discussion on what goals you have and strategy, like the draft level goals and strategies. which could come out of the input you get out of your public information meetings in February, and also what you guys think. And then after we get the results of the survey, you can adjust those goals and strategies again.
And also keep in mind, when we're looking at what we want to do with goals, it's nice to list goals. However, you want to act upon the goals, that would be also us looking at some of the details of the regulations. What is working for us relative to affordable housing? What might we need to change? What might we need to add? There's going to be some of that type of granular work to look into. So do we want to see about move the annual legal training? Sid?
No, I was going to suggest, sounds like we have a lot going on with the affordable housing plan. That's where our focus, along with this deadline. So I suggest pushing off the legal training until either after the June deadline or at least towards the end of that.
Okay. I don't think Rich would have a problem with that. So, but I will let him know. I think that would make sense. So, yes.
Require training for commissioners for land use, formal training start this year, or does that start in 2023?
It starts for 2023. Right. And there's a certain number of hours you have to.
And that annual training can count towards those hours, I believe.
I had spoken with Rich about it. He says that the way that he and others who run that, the Connecticut Bar Association seminar they do every 2 years. And actually the last one was great because it was all online. It was virtual. It was nice. They were overloaded with people chatting in questions, but it was actually really good online. He had told me that they're looking to see if something like that, and also when there's legal training sessions at the town level, to see if those would qualify. The thinking is likely it would, because towns are already doing it, not just us. And lots of people seem to want to attend that every 2-year thing with the Connecticut Bar. So supposedly, likely that will be yes. Because that would be an easy way to do it, but they're already kind of doing it. But that is starting 2023. Of course, there's always sessions available, and anyway, if you would like to attend some of them, CCCM has one, which is under correspondence, which I'll mention. UConn does some of them. So there's always those, but as far as getting the actual credit, the thinking is likely that will be, which to me makes common sense if they're already kind of up and running anyway. So, so hopefully that the state will agree. So, for that. So what I'll do is I'll let Rich know that we will push back to a date to be determined, the annual legal training session for March 3rd. And that March 3rd meeting then will be still a planning meeting, but we're going to be doing the affordable housing stuff. So, for that, in that regard. Okay, so we'll do that. As far as other dates on the calendar, Delia, as far as looking to see about starting to put together kind of more draft documents and for us to be able to review various drafts and things like that, as far as when you're thinking on the calendar would be making sense to do, including if you're advising we hold a public hearing. Yes, we have to do that 35-day notice, which we have to be mindful of when we decide to do a public hearing, making certain the notices go out 35 days for that. So on the calendar, when do you think might be for us to be looking at because the public hearing would be for us to be reviewing draft and trying to work it through in order to create something final.
If you want to have your final meeting where you're reviewing the final draft at your May meeting, it gives me time to make any changes to finalize it, to send it to the state by June.
You're talking May 5th or our regular business meeting?
The regular business meeting.
That would be 19.
Around that time.
Or
If you want to
special
have a
meeting.
draft of the hearing, like a public hearing on the draft, you'd have to back it up. If you're public hearing on the what's intended to be the final draft is around May 19th, then the legal notice, I mean, the notice to the town clerk would be 35 days earlier. You could have a meeting, like, where you invite the public to go over the draft, and you didn't, maybe not call it a public hearing, but you still do the same promotion you do for the survey, and you're still notifying everybody that's, it's a meeting. But then you don't have to provide the 35-day notice to the town clerk, but you'd still be, we'd have a draft of it on the website. You'd be telling all the same places, except maybe you wouldn't, we could still send the notice to, say, the senior housing, because that's where I would have the paper surveys mailed directly to them.
So if we were to say, for example, that business meeting, which is the 19th of May, we would need, because June 1st is then is 2 weeks later, we would need to then vote out something or be prepared no later than Thursday, the 26th, because we have to approve something and then get it out to the state for June 1st.
June 1st.
It's
It's
June
in-
1st.
It's in June.
I thought it was June 1st.
I've seen different dates. The guideline that they put out actually said July, but then apparently the guideline wasn't right.
No, I don't.
It
think
is
it's
in
July
June.
1st.
It's just the
June.
guide was wrong.
Correct, it's not July. I thought it was June 1st they had listed.
That
is
was
understanding.
my goal. I
I
don't know
believe it's
exactly
June
if that's the
1st,
date.
what I had seen. And
So I just need some time to see if there's corrections they have to make, if there's typos or formatting errors or whatever.
so if we were to say the business meeting of the 19th of May to try to finalize the document, that would give us 2 weeks basically to then get everything together and then get it to, although getting it to the state is just electronic submission.
Yeah,
So, because we don't have to mail them paper copies.
they don't want paper.
Would that be workable? Okay,
So you want to say May?
that would be the May 19th. Now, one thing we would have to keep in mind is, I mean, I'm not sure how many, who knows what we'll have for business that night. For some reason, we have a lot of stuff. We cannot, we can always decide what to do, but we should, we would, it wouldn't be the first time we're seeing drafts. I mean, we're going to be getting drafts coming out to us, so it'll just be when we have to finalize our work, in a sense.
You were right, Jeff. It is, at least the notice says June 1st, 2020.
There's some discussion or some talk that the legislature may perhaps move it back if they decide to add more onto what to be done, but right now, you can't rely upon what they may or may not do. It is the deadline as it is. So, for that, so, okay. So, and that would then give us some time after that meeting to do whatever needs to be done to get it to them. Okay, all right. And then as far as, was there any other time points on this, Delia, that we're going to be using our first Thursday meetings? That's February 3rd. We also said that's March 3rd. We have April 7th, and we have May 5th. And we also talked about seeing what we can do with our business meetings. One thing we have to be prepared for is if any of our business meetings has a lot of applications, and it's, let's say we get a special permit, and then we have to schedule a public hearing. A public hearing sometimes can take us some time, depending upon how involved the application is. What would potentially work for people if we needed then to hold an extra meeting? Would looking at a second Thursday, or do people feel like a fourth Thursday if we found that one of our business meetings is busy enough, we just didn't have enough time to put in a lot of time for affordable housing at that one? Because that way then we can be thinking about what we would do depending upon as we're developing an agenda for the business meetings. We want to make certain we have enough time to discuss affordable housing and not try to cram it in and rush it through at a business meeting. In general, with of these extra Thursdays work for people? We don't tend to do them often, but we may have to.
If we would do it after our regular meeting scheduled, tentatively then, because if we don't end up with a lot of business for our meeting, we may.
Well, we would know that as we set the agenda. So that would really be known the week prior to the business meeting, right, Ashley? Because the agenda gets set.
Yeah.
And we would know, like for tonight, we didn't have much in the way of applications, so that was known. So,
We didn't plan, we go ahead and have the meeting the week before and then, yeah, we don't have much to do next week either.
Yeah.
so we could consider that if we're setting the agenda and we have a lot of applications, or let's say we have to schedule a public hearing for a special permit, and we know that that's going to be a busy business meeting, we would know that, and we can always then see about trying to then vote to schedule an extra meeting a Thursday after, because we would really know that really basically what the second week of the month, in a sense, the second Thursday we would know, and thus we could plan the extra Thursday later in the month.
We want to put on our schedules now as a tentative meeting, February 24. Just
Well, I think it would be helpful for us, so that way we would know. We can always cancel them. The question is, how many of them do we want to prepare to be doing that each month? Or how do we want to schedule that?
Sounds like we're on call for most any one of them.
So do we, because usually when we want to do one of the Thursdays, we never have a problem getting this room. Sounds like other than the selectmen meeting on some of the Thursdays, this room otherwise is used and they're meeting upstairs. So do we want to tentatively mark down the fourth Thursday? Okay,
Jeffrey Marfa has something to say.
okay.
So when you look at the minutes.
All these possible things? Yes.
And when we see the meeting minutes, all this stuff will be in graphic form and things like that with pictures that make it easier for us. Yes, you have something? And I just want to state for the record, David Morse had to leave. So, can you hear us, Jeff?
It's choppy, Jeff. I can hear you now. I just wanted to say that I'm fine adding another Thursday, but I also had in mind that don't we have to get the cannabis legislation or the cannabis wording done by the 1st of July as well?
No, we gave ourselves 1 year for a moratorium. And when did we put that into effect? We put it. Yeah, so it is on our list to do. And one of the things I'm going to be following up with Rich is, Rich had told us before that his law firm likely was going to be drafting up those regulations, their various towns that they serve, that covers stuff in that massive hill that got on. So I can follow up with Rich to see where he is on that. Of course, we're going to need to be making some decisions on certain things. But yes, we do have that on the list. That's not for, that wouldn't be July 1st, I believe. Actually, I can follow it. Where's the regulation? We put that into the regulation. When the moratorium. Oh, where it is, let's see. Here it is. So we said here that, let's see.
We'll see at the end of it.
I didn't know, it's not on this one.
Maybe you don't have a final.
This is the proposed one, it's not the final one. I'm trying to, let me see, I have a folder on candidates here. There's no candidates in it, but the folder. According to here, what do we say? We said, we're trying to pull up what we said as far as the effective date for the term. Oh, I don't have it in my folder. I don't think it was July. When did we left? that is a good point because we have several other items that we're working on. We have to be mindful of.
I agree. We did, if I had to say it, there was, maybe the business meeting in November.
Yeah, I thought we gave ourselves a good chunk of 2022.
You're right. I was thinking that we had to meet the deadline by July 1st, but
No, I don't believe so. I think we have a good chunk. We'll find it, but yes, that is one that we need to do. But again, my thinking is that Rich likely will be able to do a bunch of the legal heavy lifting for us with whatever type of drafting of certain provisions that have to be compliant with the law, and then we're going to need to make certain other decisions. There's only going to be one commercial growing entity and one commercial dispensary that Woodstock maximum right now could have per state law because of our population. So, although all the places in this area seem to be going enough, Sturbridge, Dudley, Southbridge, Charlton, there's tons and tons of places up there that have gotten their licenses in Massachusetts. So they seem to be having a fight amongst themselves. But when we decided.
Here's the final document.
October 31st, 2022. We do have a certain amount of time. So even if we were to deal with it after we get this done by June 1st, the affordable housing plan, we still should have enough time to knock that one out of the park. So.
Halloween,
What?
Halloween, right?
We could, sure. You're not suggesting we give out cannabis or Halloween trees, right? Although I don't know if the dispensaries get into that, if they market for the holidays. Hey, Valentine's Day, have your heart-shaped chocolate cannabis candies. So that is on our to-do list, but that's something that likely will almost certainly is gonna have to wait until we're done with this. So, was there any other time points on this, Dale, that you were looking through this time schedule that we need to be noting on our calendar to start scheduling? I think a lot of this stuff is gonna be
Let me
moving.
just go over what I wrote down and make sure I didn't miss anything. So the survey, I'm gonna do my best effort to have it start on February 1st and run for 1 month.
Okay.
Well, actually, you said you wanted the deadline to be March 1st.
That's what we had decided to set March 1st.
And then you want to have a information meeting on February 3rd and also on February 17th.
Yes.
And you'll have a meeting on March 3rd where I'm going to have the needs assessment ready for you.
Yes.
And then you'll have your public hearing on May 19th.
And then and so you'll let us know on the calendar 35 days prior, we have to get whatever else.
Yep. So did I miss any other deadlines or dates you wanted?
Unless there's anything from other commissioners as far as other dates or other things we need to schedule, Joe?
If we have the public hearing on May 19th, then if we decide to change anything in the draft, we could either do it that day or at least the following Thursday, May 26th.
Yes.
Changes that we heard about at the public hearing before, obviously, the June 1st deadline.
Correct. And we would hope that even this final draft that we're going to schedule this meeting for, we would still be having all those public informational meetings and other stuff to hopefully help us finalize our work. But yes, we would also schedule the May 26th. That would be our backstop as far as we have to absolutely get it done. Correct. Yep, we would have that scheduled as well. Yes. Which is a good point that we just want to make certain that we can see where we are as we're moving forward with each meeting. We should be reminding ourselves of the schedule and timeline, adjusting it if we feel we have to, but also keeping in mind that, you know, May 19th, May 26th, is really, you know, final stop, so to speak, heading into June 1st. Is there anything else from commissioners as far as the process? And one of the things I want to mention again then is, as we're doing this right now, this is kind of going to be, well, not kind of, this will dominate our agendas. It does mean that a number of other items are, for the time being, not that they're not important, but we're not dealing with state deadlines. Other than we have the cannabis items, which that's our deadline, that's October 31st. That gets into what we're doing on agriculture, and there's a couple of points I want to raise about that. We don't have to get into much detail tonight on it, just for, because of the sake of time. There were some last minute documents that went out. I have had some discussions with Delia and Ashley to see about what we can do to try to coalesce more together to facilitate our work. One of the things we touched upon, and I think it's good that we touched upon it, is when we're looking at different permitting different agricultural things. And again, we have not been looking at, we want special permits for everything. We're really looking to see what we can do to keep things as reasonable as we can, being mindful that things that are non-ag, right now, things that are non-ag, like you want to set up a store, with a gas station, you want to set up a convenience store, those require special permits right now. We would also need to be mindful that what we're doing with different types of community, we need to make certain we're being fair and consistent. Again, 99% of the town is the community. And so we definitely want to make sure we're doing things consistent as best as we can within the same district. Would be how do some of these permitting policies also dovetail with non-ag. Now, there are non-ag things happening now, you know, gas station, convenience store, things like that, other stores. And there's non-ag things that could potentially happen on an agricultural setting, just using the farm or a barn to do something that is not ag at all. If you want to start getting into holding lots of banquets or doing concerts or something. So we have to be mindful of how we play that out. Because if we start creating certain sets of processes, but then we have a completely different set for others, start getting into a lot of inconsistencies and contradictions. So one of the things we talked about was Delia and Ashley, Delia put stuff together. Ashley and I reviewed it. Some of this was stuff going back to 2017, when we had a lot of discussions about what to do with certain types of permitting, and including change of use where there's already existing business. They just want to come and do something slightly different, but they're not constructing anything different outside, same parking, things like that. We've had prior discussions. So what ended up happening was there's been some of the old documents I sent out to remind us where we've been, but also some of the newer documents or updated documents that touch upon ag and different ways of looking at different types of permitting that would be as the least burdensome as possible, but also to be able to have different levels of review depending upon the intensity or the scope of what happens. So those documents came out late relative to this meeting. They were basically kind of hot off the presses, so I wanted to get them out to you. I wasn't expecting we were going to delve into massively tonight, not giving you guys enough to look on it, but I knew we were going to really need to spend a lot of time on affordable housing. So I think from agriculture, and I'm hoping to what people think, right now our meetings, we may not be able to do an awful lot on agriculture if we're really going to be focusing a lot on affordable housing right now. But this also gives time for you to see it, to read through and be thinking about those documents that got sent out. See kind of what we might be able to do and try to see where we might want to be looking further at things when we're able to jump more into detail in ag again. And also to give a chance to get input from others. But, of course, the ag commission, I had sent you copies of those electronically. I also looped in again the Economic Development Commission. They're active. And for us to get some further input. So while we're dealing with affordable housing, we can be kind of having this on the sideline for the time being, but giving us all an opportunity to delve further into it and give others an opportunity to be providing us info. And again, once we reach that June 1st deadline with the state for affordable housing, then our meetings dealing with some of these other things. There's a number of other items that we kind of have on the list we want to look at. Our time frees up for to be able to do it. I'm open to what people think in that regard, but I'm not certain we're going to be able to do heavy lifting with agriculture while we're doing heavy lifting with affordable housing. I don't know how we fit that into our meetings at all. And do the regular business. So this might be a good opportunity for us to delve in ourselves individually when we a lot of this stuff, and then certainly get further input from others so that we're in a better situation. Basically, once we're past June 1st, to pivot right back to ag and go accordingly. That's why I wanted to get those documents out, so that way people would have enough time to start reviewing and seeing, some of the thinking. I'll open up to, Ashley, if there's anything you want to add to that as far as what we kind of had discussed and why these documents were, done and why we sent them out.
Sure, I can, you have these at your seat, and I'm not sure if everyone online got them.
We don't need to go through them in detail. I think we can, I don't think we would have a sheet. We could, but the documents just literally went out last night.
Yeah, I don't need to go in detail, I'm just explaining. So the first one would be the business intensity level, that's what it says at the top of the page. I went through and I wrote down what I thought the intensity and the impact was for the business. And I tried to capture as many of the businesses as I could without spending like a really long time on this. So that we probably do have some businesses that are not included on this list. But for intensity and impact, it has to do with the environmental impact, the traffic level, the noise and lighting. And then I went to the business types for definitions. These are what your zoning regs have for definitions for businesses. There's a couple that have a little diamond next to them. They're businesses that exist in town that we don't have a definition for. So I use the definition, or I based what I wrote here on the definition that's in that illustrated book. And their definition didn't always fit with what we had, so I made some adjustments. And then I indicated whether the business exists in town and the intensity level. And a couple of places I have a question, because it probably depends on, you might have, say, a restaurant. You could have a very small restaurant that would be, when into an existing building, it could be pretty low impact. You could have a new restaurant, new construction, and it could be high turnover. That would be a different level of impact. And then the last thing, I used those two documents to draft. The last thing I have for you to review tonight, the Woodpark proposed business permitting structure. And so I have the types of permits that you have now, and I added a couple of things. So I start with the lowest impact and lowest intensity, which would be farm stands and agriculture. And then I move down on the page, and it goes on to higher levels of impact and intensity. And I'm proposing that you consider changing your home occupation zoning permit to a home-based business / rural cottage industry, and not allow food service that allows for consumption on the premises with that type of permit. You could still allow for the type of food service like a caterer or say bakery that sells the product that's not consumed on the premises. We probably have a caterer. I don't know about all businesses in town, but it's not that uncommon. We do have a small business that was approved as a home occupation, and the commission approved the bakery certificate for a woman who bakes in her basement. I visited her kitchen. She has a commercial kitchen, but it's very small. It's like no bigger than a normal kitchen, maybe with an extra 1 or 2 stoves with ovens. And she bakes and sells her items at farmers markets. It's a really small business, and she doesn't sell, every day of the week, because she sells at farmers markets. And I asked her, because she happens to sell gluten-free, and they happen to be gluten-free, and I like their products, I've had some, I asked if she might sell them at the store, so I could go to the store and buy it. Because finding a good locally baked product that I can eat is nice. And she said maybe, in the future, but she wasn't doing that at the time. And so because you wouldn't even notice when you drive by her house that it's in her house. It seemed perfectly fine. And I don't see a problem with that kind of food business, but not the kind where you're having customers go to your house. Restaurants have a high turnover.
Cottage industry, there was a limitation. You could bake it in your house and you could sell it from your house. But if you sell it, that gives it a different standard. But just want to make sure we don't get ourselves into trouble by saying, all right, you can.
Well,
bake
your
it,
rules,
and then sell it at Sweet Evelina.
your rule doesn't allow someone to do something that another state agency regulates. If they need permission or permit from that state agency to do something, they're still gonna need it.
Yes, I think that's a good point. And again, I think these are, and one thing that wasn't in the packet that I emailed was a proposal that Delia and I at the time back in 2018 had proposed out to the commission about how do we handle the change of businesses. There was some discussion prior about, is that stuff that has to come here? Or is that something that can just be handled through the CEO? Something that someone wants to build something brand new, is different. But something where we see a lot of these change of uses, but nothing changes with the structure. What they do inside is different. That gets into the building department. But I emailed that out as well because that was part of our discussion at the time, as well as certain things we handle by the commission, certain things that get handled by the CEO in her office for us to consider as well. You did put a whole thing through here, Delia, about the different levels of impact and intensity, which is stuff we had talked about prior to consider how to handle, different things. And that also gets into discussions we had about agriculture. That we don't necessarily have to have a special permit for every single thing. There might be something that might be a really big, heavy intensity thing, let's say a big concert. That's not an agricultural event. It's might happen in an agricultural setting that might require a special permit, but that can also get into a whole host of other things that you might have to then start getting constables, or you might have to get NDBH, or you might have to get a building permit or fire marshal involved. Whereas a lot of other things that may happen ag or non-ag, if they're much lower intensity, there's different types of permitting we can do. And we had asked Rich Roberts prior about what could we do for different types of permits, including for ag. And his answer was, you can create different levels of permits. Just be mindful there are some things that have to require special permits. And there's a whole process for how we handle it. Otherwise, we really can create various different types of permitting processes as long as they're legal. We have the non-residential zoning permit. We have some other things that we've created. So we're able to do that. Is really how we would want to handle it. Did you have anything else, Delia, on this? I think these are really good documents for us, not necessarily tonight to go into detail on, but for us to be kind of behind the scenes reviewing. And again, it's going to get into ag and non-ag. And some of this stuff gets into some of the non-ag business stuff that we've wanted to get to. And we haven't yet. And this could be an opportunity to take care of several important items at once. Joe?
I thought this was a very interesting set of information, and that one thing, Woodstock businesses closing and leaving town was pretty interesting. But I thought it might also be helpful to identify businesses that have come to the same time period that this table.
We could see about trying to get that. And I can tell you, there's a lot of home occupations that people have set up. I don't know if they've gotten permits or not, but people certainly are advertising and getting on social media for all sorts of things they're doing. You know, a lot of it's happened because people have been home from during the pandemic and finding ways to do things or other stuff. But certainly, I think getting into home occupations and how we handle it, we know we need to update that. This is a good opportunity as well to do that. And that's why Delia has it, listed there. Certainly, there are some things that are not a home occupation that really, get beyond. But looking at where we are with this type of stuff, I think what's been put together is really good to help facilitate further work. And since we're going to have a number of months right now that we have to focus on affordable housing, this gives an opportunity for us to be behind the scenes, looking into it, as I said earlier, getting input from others. So we're in a better position when we start back up in June. Not that agriculture isn't important, but unfortunately with the pending state deadline for affordable housing, we have to act on that item quickly. So I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add to it right now. We weren't going to get into a lot of detail on the documents, but wanted to at least bring up where we stood with ag and also where on the calendar we're dealing with it.
Just one item really. I looked at that the information you put out, and it was very, very informative. It begs that you might want to entertain. We have a unique opportunity to perhaps create a floating zone with agricultural enterprises within the town that could be used as a template for your other home occupations and other things, where you have an opportunity to perhaps put a limited time permit on it and see whether there's a traffic problem or there's a lighting problem and things like that. The agricultural community within town is pretty well established. The growth of it's coming in smaller entities that are coming up. We've got some very, very successful large entities within town in the agricultural community. Just looking at those as a blueprint for what has worked with those and what has not worked with those, I think would give us some great opportunity to just extrapolate into whether it be affordable housing, looking at where that can be or where it should be or what you can do with it, or whether it be cottage industry. I understand that time is short and that I didn't mean to get on the soapbox, but the agricultural industry within town, you have a June 1 deadline, and quite honestly, anybody that's going to be running a agricultural enterprise probably has an April deadline to get out there and be on the street corner if they want to be successful. So we have deadlines as you do too. We certainly appreciate any support, and you can give us, and we are more than willing to work hand in glove with you to help you in any way we can.
No, thank you. We look forward to continuing to work together. So, does anyone have anything else on the ag stuff at this time? Or otherwise, we do have a few other quick items on the agenda to finish up business-wise. See anybody's hand up online? Nope. We have the CEO report. Anything, Ashley? I know you've given us a list of permits. You mentioned about transitioning your reports to a memorandum relative to enforcement. I don't know if you enforcement discuss with us or?
No, not at the moment.
Okay, when you talk about reports to a memorandum, it's what we usually get sometimes. Which is
Well, yeah, just more like that rather than just like the chart.
Yeah, okay, yep, that's fine. So, anybody have any items relative? It's a short list right now for some of the permits that we see listed. So. Okay. And then, budget review and bills, there's no bills for us to sign. I believe I signed 2 bills that were for some public notices, which were appropriate for us to be charged. So I don't know if everyone has anything else relative to that. We don't have to do anything now with the upcoming fiscal year budget. Right now, that will have to be handled by Board of Finance. There was correspondence that came out from Town Hall. That came out this morning, well, actually yesterday and this morning, that the Connecticut municipality is offering some webinars, mostly geared for the newly elected officials, but they're actually helpful. One is about municipal budgeting, another one is about ethics, freedom of information in public meetings. There's also additional training opportunities that you can go on to the CCM's website. If you wanted to know more about it, touch base with Crystal Adams. She gets the information from CCM. She can let you know about any of these things coming up in February. Or just go to their website and you'll see them all. In that regard. But that didn't make it meeting packet because it just really came out of a town hall was notified. And then we have this, this was on the desk.
Yeah.
It's just for us that we're notified about this. So we get notified about anything that goes to the Connecticut Siting Council relative to cell towers. So I guess Transnet Wireless has something that they're proposing on. It says here that T-Mobile plans to install antennas and related equipment at an existing tower at 40 Sherman Road. I don't know when they're going to hold a hearing on this. We get notified. If you're interested in the massive details, you're welcome to read through it. Just keep in mind that the Siting Council has jurisdiction. We don't fully, but they do try to encourage these companies to use existing towers, not create their own individual towers, but to kind of piggyback on other towers. There's all these arrangements that get worked out by the Connecticut Siting Council. The related equipment is always a backup generator. They always have that fenced in, that type of stuff. But we've been notified, so if any of you is interested in learning more about it or wanting to get more information, this is your copy?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's always helpful at least to know that it's happening.
Yep.
And especially if it's the existing cell tower, that's always good to know that even though there's more mobile or cellular communications being installed, it's on existing tower.
They try to encourage that.
So,
yeah. Yep. Yeah, whenever they schedule these hearings, if it's something in town, we do get notified. They're required to notify us. Otherwise, all the massive details, if you want to really delve into it, go to the Connecticut Siting Council website, and no lack of documents get submitted, for these. Although hopefully we don't have to be involved in that whole mess between the airline industry and the wireless providers, the whole 5G by airports type thing. That's happening at the federal level. So that is, we've been notified. I don't have anything else under correspondence. I don't think there's anything else that came in. Was there? So that would take us to agenda item 12. Motion by Young, seconded by Blackmere to adjourn the meeting. Let me just go through the roll. Joe Adaletta. Mark Blackmere. Sid Bludger. Nancy Fraser.
Aye.
I didn't. Nancy?
One more time.
Aye.
Jeff Gordon, aye. Because we don't have Dave Morse, I'm going to note for the record, Dean, No, I'm gonna seek Dean Gould as an alternate. Jeff Marcotte,
Sorry, what's the motion on the table?
the motion is to stay here for 3 more hours. No, it's to adjourn the meeting.
That's what I thought. Aye.
Okay. I was worried he was gonna say no. Joe Plulik? Doug's not here. And Timothy Young. That so passes whatever time you have, Amy.